Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Would have my brain tied behind my back, and with talent on loan from God. And with a household name recognized in all four corners of the world, this is the Rush Limbaugh program on Friday.
Live from the Southern Command in sunny South Florida, it's Open Line Friday!
Yes, sirree. Here we are, loaded for bear, folks. Ready to go for 3 busy broadcast hours at the Limbaugh Institute for Anti-Left Studies. Excuse me. Yes. It goes that I have betrayed conservatism all the way back in the presidential campaign, and now all I'm good for is opposing liberalism. It's happy to have you here. 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. The email address lrushbo@eibnet.us. And just to repeat the rules for new listeners, Monday through Thursday, we're pretty tightly screened. The most tightly screened radio talk show in the country. Most people would kill for calls. We don't have that problem, so callers have to talk about things I care about Monday through Thursday, or they don't get on. And if they lie about it, they're history pretty soon. But on Friday, that's what Open Line Friday is. Whatever people want to talk about is fine, whether I care about it or am interested in it or not. And it's an opportunity to find out what else is on people's minds if you are so inclined. 800-282-2882. I'll tell you, I look battle-scarred here today. I had the most unpleasant experience at home today. You know, I have my little cat, my little Abyssinian named Allie. I got Allie a little while, about 6 months after my previous beloved cat passed away, Pumpkin. And it had 2 completely different personalities, whereas Pumpkin from 1 year of age was like an old lady. Slow-moving, totally affectionate. Wherever I went, the cat was there. Just this cat, Allie, is the most independent, like I've always thought all cats were. Doesn't give a rat's rear end, except when she wants to eat or something. It's a lovable cat, don't misunderstand. But I made a mistake with this cat when she was a kitten, because the place I live has many danger points for a kitten, like second-story balconies to jump or fall off of, or any number of the nooks and crannies to get lost in. For the first, 9 months or year, the only place the cat got to go was my library, where I could keep an eye on her. And it's a big enough room as it is, and it has an upstairs and a balcony. Had to close that off. I closed off the staircase so that nobody could get up there, including the cat. Well, this meant that at the end of the night, when it was time to go to bed, I had to catch the cat and take her up with me. And she didn't like it, and she began to hide and to hiss and to basically threaten me when I tried to pick her up, because she didn't want to be captured. But I had to do it. And this went on for 9 months. And I'm afraid I have forever scarred this cat into thinking that whenever I approach, she's going to be captured and sent back to the zoo or something. Well, today she had to go to the vet, the annual checkup, and to get the claws clipped. I did not remove the claws this time like we did on the previous cat, because I thought that was just a little bit too much. Plus, there are dogs running around, so the cat needs some defense mechanisms for curing the giant dogs or sheepdogs. So it was time today, and yesterday we could not get her into the travel cage. She just ran away from the staff attempting to, and she would hide in places they couldn't get her. So I get this note yesterday, look, we've tried 2 hours, but we're going to need your help tomorrow, meaning today. It's, oh, no, you mean I'm the one that has to catch her and end up being hated? So we devised a plan. The cat, every morning, when I'm in the shower, goes to a windowsill in my closet and waits for me to come out of the shower, get dressed, and then go scratch her butt and pet her. So I said, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go there, and I'm going to grab her, and you run in here with that cage. We leave the cage in a room overnight so she get accustomed to it. Well, all of that went according to plan until she saw the cage, and I have got cat scratches all over my hands. That cat was hissing. The mouth was wide open. Her eyes, her pupils were wide open. I said, this cat's either traumatized or mad, or maybe both. At me. So we put her, get her in that cage. She jumped out. I mean, lickety-split. Found her another 10 minutes, get her back in the cage, and the guy had forgotten to zip up the end. She darted out the edge of it. Took 3 times, 3 traumatized cat experiences. And I don't know. It's not cruelty because we had to take the cat to the vet to make sure she's get her annual shots, check up, and all this. But I was Band-Aids and styptic pencils and all over my hands for 20 minutes after this. And I've never seen the cat so mad. And I'm just convinced it was that first year. I didn't. It's getting worse. I mean, this is the first time this happened. Last year when we put her in the cage, I mean, she objected, but there weren't any claws and fangs and hisses. Now this time, if I would have thought about it, I would have put on a hazmat suit or some such thing. Anyway, got her to the vet, got the claws trimmed, got the shot. She's back home now. So, but man, oh man, I've never seen such a traumatized pet as this one. And this cat is treated with the greatest affection, and nobody is ever mean. I'm convinced that I've made the cat paranoid in that first year. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, 3 things on the docket today. Well, actually, there'll be more than that. But things I want to get into in depth. We are on the verge of a genuine constitutional crisis because of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals opening the door for this Hawaii Obama-appointed judge to deny Trump's travel ban the second time going. And I want to get into detail as to what this really means and what the left is really doing here. It's not a legal dispute. This, as I said yesterday, it is a silent coup that is taking place that I'm sure has been strategized since before Trump was inaugurated. But the profound, devastating possibilities that result from this in terms of a president losing all constitutional power. Do you realize with this judge's ruling, I'll tell you where this is going. Let's say that Donald Trump decides at any time in the near future that he needs to deploy troops. And so he does. And so a leftist activist goes to a court, shops and finds a judge like the guy in Hawaii, and claims that Trump said during the campaign that he was going to do X, Y, or Z, whatever, and the deployment of troops is not really for the stated purpose, and the judge could shut it down. This judge's ruling has, if the guy's not stopped, if the Supreme Court doesn't overturn this, or if Trump doesn't just ignore it like Andrew Jackson did, then we're getting to the point where the president, because of the judiciary, will have totally lost constitutional authority to defend the country. Because of this little ruling in Hawaii that was made possible by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal. And it's all about this idiotic notion that a presidential candidate on the campaign trail making statements is the equivalent of an inaugurated president stating policy. But even at that, the judge doesn't have the right to do what he did. He doesn't have the congressional right. He doesn't have the statutory right to do what he did because basically this judge shut Trump down because in this judge's opinion, Trump is a bigot. And anti-Muslim means bigot, and we are not going to allow our president to represent us this way is essentially what this judge was saying. But look, it's far worse than that. That's just how I'm setting the table for you on it. The Trump budget. You know, yesterday I fell into a trap. Yesterday, my friends, I erred. I made a mistake. And in making the mistake, I can demonstrate how easy it is for even people like me, the most highly trained, the most highly aware specialist, people who know left and right, backwards and forwards, the tricks of the trade in Washington politics. What did I do? I looked at Trump's budget, and I said, well, you know, presidential budgets never survive anything. Presidential budgets are always dead on arrival because all budgets originate in the House. And I thereby made the mistake of equating the Trump budget with every other presidential budget, a mistake further compounded by failing to remember my own admonition to many of you. This is a different president. This is a president who never had anybody like this before, who has never governed like this before, and is redefining the way Washington works, and in many ways is turning it upside down. So I want to withdraw my claim yesterday that Trump's budget is DOA, and I want to restate what I actually think of it today, and combined with a couple of sound bites from the Office of Management and Budget Director, Mr. Mulvaney, because I think Trump's budget is one thing. It's exactly what Trump said he was going to do during the campaign. It's exactly why Trump was elected. And it does exactly what Republicans and conservatives have been claiming needed to be done ever since I have been a conservative and following all these things. And yet, Washington reacted the way it always does. The president's budget is dead on arrival. The president's budget takes food out of the mouths of hungry people. The president's budget sends the homeless further into the dark, blah, blah, blah. And you can't look at Trump nor his presidency the way you've always looked at presidencies before. He's a different animal. He's governed by different motivations. He's not of Washington. He doesn't want to become of Washington. It's a short way of saying that I think Trump's budget is going to have much more weight and has a much more distinct possibility of being enacted, much of it, than any presidential budget heretofore. So we'll get into detail and explain that as the program unfolds. Got a couple fun things. There's a story out today that transgender men can menstruate, and the left has come up with a teaching mechanism to teach kids that men can have periods, and the character they're using is Tony the Tampon. So we have a gay community update coming up on that. Did you hear about this poor guy at ESPN, this reporter? He's actually a sportscaster, play-by-play for tennis coverage. His name is Adler. And he was doing the Australian Open. And Venus Williams was playing in the Australian Open. And in one particular moment during play, she charged the net. And she slammed a shot back at her opponent, got the point, and this Adler guy said that she was employing guerrilla tactics. Look at that. And it was praise, enjoying guerrilla tactics. Well, a New York Times reporter heard that and tweeted that this guy was the worst of racists. How come the Williams sisters are still referred to in this way in 2017? And it wasn't both, it was Venus Williams. So this New York Times reporter tweets that Adler had called Venus Williams a racist, and then by extension her sister a racist, and that he was a racist by calling them gorillas, and that we should be, and the New York Times ran this, made a big deal about it. ESPN fired the guy. Do you remember the story? This is some years ago now. There was a member of the Washington, D.C. City Council that talking about the budget, and he was being critical of a certain part of it and called it niggardly. And all hell broke loose on that. Niggardly means stingy. They accused this guy of using the N-word or something that sounded close to it and therefore unacceptable, and this guy got canned. Well, the ESPN reporter has since suffered a heart attack because of the stress due to the fact that his reputation has been destroyed, his name has been destroyed, And all he was doing was complimenting Venus Williams' style of play. In fact, Nike even described gorilla tennis in an ad in 1995 featuring Pete Sampras and Andre Agassi. The New York Times, having learned all this, has still not corrected it, has still not withdrawn. Adler is suing ESPN. Gorilla, G-U-E-R-I-L-L-A. You've heard of guerrilla warfare, guerrillas in war. They are independent, small, little military units that in many cases run coups. Versus a gorilla, G-O-R-I-L-L-A, one of the great apes. Two different words pronounced the same way. The guy did not say one thing incorrectly. He did not say a racist thing. He was not calling Venus Williams a gorilla. The New York Times sees to it that the guy gets fired by mounting pressure on ESPN. How can you dare have somebody like that on your air? How can you dare? And it's just outrageous. It's not just political correctness run amok. It clearly is that. But it is also much worse. In addition to that, folks, Sean Spicer just took it to the press corps yesterday, just threw it right back in their face over this wiretapping thing. And about this wiretapping thing, the White House is doubling down on this, despite everybody in the House and Senate and the CIA and the FBI and the OAI and the ADI and the DDB, everybody saying there was no way the Trump Tower was wiretapped. The Trump administration doubling down. Trump still saying in 2 weeks you're going to see. I think I know what's going on here. I think I know what they're talking about. And it is potentially explosive. But Spicer just took it to the media yesterday by reminding them how they reported all of this and gave them the examples. It's really great. So that's just a portion of what's coming up today, plus your phone calls because it's Open Line Friday. So hang on. We'll be right back. Oh, yeah, Trump care, Obamacare, replace and repeal. A couple of things. A listener sent me a note today saying, Rush, I remember you were on Greta Van Susteren show on Fox back in 2009, and you said some of the smartest stuff about health care. Could you go back and find it? So we did. And it runs about a minute and 22 seconds. She was asking me about Obamacare 2009, and I proposed a solution back then that was much, much less than Obamacare. And we found it in the archives. So and I was looking at it and I said, it's damn good. I wish I could remember all these things. You know, I'm so forward thinking that once I've done something, it's done and over with, and I never look back. So I'm glad this listener remembered it. About this morning there was a meeting. Trump had a little meeting in the Oval Office, and VA people let the media in there. Before the VA meeting started, Trump was surrounded by Republicans from Congress. And he said, we have been here working all night. We've been the phones, we've been here, we've been working all night, and we're going to end up with the best health care bill you've ever seen. Obamacare is a disaster. It's falling apart. It's becoming untenable. It's destroying things and destroying lives. We're going to have the best health care bill. And he said every no vote that was in this room is now a yes vote. I don't know how many people were in there, but it was a sizable number. But it was upbeat, it was optimistic, and it was promising. And he said everybody in this room was a no vote when we started last night, and they are a yes vote on this. We don't know details yet. Don't know what happened to convert those votes from no to yes. We're following it. We'll be back. Grab audio soundbite number one. We head to the soundbite of me with Greta Van Susteren back in 2009. This is July 24th, so summertime. And the discussions on Obamacare were just heating up. The Obama administration had just passed the stimulus, the pork bill. They were moving on to Obamacare. The numbers here at 2009, Republicans couldn't stop anything. They didn't have the votes in the House or the Senate to stop anything. Obama could get anything he wanted. He got the stimulus first. It's coming out next with Obamacare. And again, I'm playing this within the context of something major happening this morning, just right before the program. Trump in the Oval Office talking to the media, surrounded by Vice President Pence and a bunch of Republicans some from the leadership, some rank and file. And he went out of his way to praise all the work everybody had been engaging in. It had been going on all night, he said. We've been working on this all night, all morning. He said every Republican vote in this room was a no vote when they came in here, and right now every no vote is a yes vote. He went on to trash Obamacare and then extol the virtues of his repeal and replacement bill without mentioning any details. But he said that it's going to be the best health care bill anybody's ever seen. It's going to be the best solution. It's going to take some time. It's going to phase in, but it's going to take some time. But it's going to end up being the absolute best anybody's ever seen. It was typical Trump. But the point is, he was effusively confident. Trump betrayed literally no awareness of what is being said about him and his health care bill in the media. There was literally no acknowledgement of it, either attitudinally or specifically. And by that, I mean most people are very aware of what the media is saying about what they're doing. And when they make public comments, you can tell they're aware because they answer criticisms, maybe not by specifying the criticism, but if you watch enough, you know what the criticism are. So the president says something, you know he's reacting to criticism. There was none of that. There was no acknowledgement that there is any opposition. There was no acknowledgement to whatever the conventional wisdom on the status of replace and repeal is. It was nothing but full-fledged, full-speed optimism and confidence. So it's in that setting that I want to play for you a soundbite of me from July of 2009. And again, I was prompted to do this by an emailer today who remembered that I had said something about reforming health care in 2009 that they thought was really smart and asked if I still had it. So we looked in the archives, and this is it. Greta Van Susteren said, in your view, there's nothing to be fixed in the health care system from the government standpoint? Is that what I hear you saying?
Well, we don't need an overhaul. And we certainly don't need Obama's reforms. We don't need the government running health care. We don't need the government telling doctors what specialty they're going to go into. How are you going to insure 47 million people and cover them with no new doctors? And he's putting squeezes on doctors. He's going to squeeze doctor fees and so on. Obama's plan's not about health care. It is about control. Obama's plan is about reorienting the American society and the American private sector. It is the single one thing that government could then have control over every aspect of our lives and our behavior. So I gave you an answer. Deal with catastrophic. That's what scares everybody. If getting health care coverage for people, Greta, was so important, 12 million people has come. The number that I found literally are too poor to have insurance at all, and they're unemployed and so forth. For $29 billion, you could cover those 12 million people for a year. We just spent $700, $800 billion in a stimulus. Now, if health care is so important, and these people without health insurance, without coverage, so important, why not 29, 30 billion in the stimulus money to insure them? Why $1 trillion to take everybody out of their current plans, enroll them in a public option that no government official will be part of?
So when I read the transcript for this today, it reminded me of something I've been trying to say about this in this latest debate. And I have said on numerous occasions, why don't we just go back to the way it was before Obamacare? And that's what the 6 Obamacare repeal bills that the House had already sent to Obama did. They just took us back to 2009 before Obamacare was signed in. Now, I know that back then there were people upset and panicking at the rate of price increase for premiums and so forth. It was nothing like it is now. The point here is that we had back then at most 12 to 20 million uninsured, and we blew up the healthcare system. We took people out of the plans that they had and out of the doctors that they liked, and we reworked everything. We made people go to exchanges run by the states, funded by the federal government with a Medicaid expansion. It became a foreign language to try to understand this. The people that enrolled were few and far between. The young were supposed to carry the most of the financial burden by signing up, but they didn't. And just going back and looking at what we had in 2009, come up with a way to get everybody insured. That was the objective. That was one of the big selling points of Obamacare. It's unconscionable, people said, that in the wealthiest country in the world that there are 12 million or 20 million, whatever the number was, people without health insurance. Well, you can insure those people, give them health insurance according to the economic circumstances of the day in 2009 for $29 billion. You can insure it, and you've solved the problem of everybody having insurance. But that's not what they did. They blew it up. They totally blew up the entire healthcare system, and they took it over and they reworked it. It was a plan they had in a drawer. It's been a dream the left has had to take over this entire industry because I said in this bite, once the federal government controls who gets treated, because that's ultimately what health care is. You get sick, you get treated. When the government's in charge of that, that gave rise to the death panels. And all the death panels were, as a government, usually the Secretary of Health and Human Services and a committee, decide whether or not we're going to spend X number of dollars to cure somebody with a disease at age 75, or does it make more sense to spend that money on somebody who's sick when they're 30? They've got many more productive years. Purely socialistic in its thinking. And that's exactly what this was. And all this massive overhaul was not going to increase healthcare treatment, access to actual care. It was going to put the government, it did, that's what we're living with now. The government decides who gets treated. I mean, you talk about health insurance all day long, but the point of having health insurance is so you can go to the hospital, so you go to the doctor. So my plan was two things. First, if you're really serious about this, spend $29-30 billion and insure everybody. Then have something called catastrophic insurance over here that takes care of the emergencies unanticipated that nobody ever anticipates, but that nobody can afford. That's why you have insurance for it. And everything else, people pay for it as best they can. And the people who can't, for genuine economic or other illness-related reasons, we take care of. But that's not what Obamacare is. Obamacare is totally blowing up the system. And it was not nearly as bad as everybody made it out to be, particularly compared to what we have now. So the point is, why couldn't we just go back to what it was before Obamacare? Well, you can't do that, they say, because that means turning everything back over to the insurance companies. Well, what do you think this deal does? One of the problems with the repeal and replace is that it keeps the insurance companies in charge of a lot of things. And if you have an opposition to that, for whatever reason, that's not changed. So I'm going to be real eager to see what Trump was celebrating today. After Trump finished, Bill Hemmer at Fox had a short interview with Kathy McMorris Rogers, who's in the House leadership. And she had the toughest time answering his questions because she didn't know specifically what Trump was talking about, at least in terms of the specific questions Hemmer was asking her. So she had yet to be informed about what had happened in this meeting. And it's going to trickle out. We're going to find out. But it really, folks, it was remarkable how upbeat and optimistic and almost defiant Trump was, and how proud he was of what they'd come up with, and how he had converted all these no votes on the Republican side to yes. Because when I started the day today, when I got here and started today's phase of show prep, there was something like 22 House Republicans that were going to go vote no on the Ryan bill. Now, not all 22 of them were in the Oval Office with Trump. As I said, I don't know how many were in there. But it was a sizable number that he converted, he said, from no to yes. So he clearly thinks that they gained a lot of ground last night and into today. And I think, well, I don't want to go too far. I'm not sure that what I heard I can actually attach to certain. It sounded like he was going all in on the Ryan bill, except that Ryan last night announced that he realizes there's going to have to be some changes. So it sounds like some genuine horse trading has gone on here. We'll have to wait and see. Time's coming. Won't be long before we do. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Yet to come, wiretapping, full details, the judge in Hawaii, and what does this really mean? You don't want to miss that. Those are coming up. Tony the Tampon, new teaching aid in school for young kids to learn that men can menstruate. For those of you in Rio Linda, that means men can have their periods. I'm sorry, men can have periods. There is no their periods yet, except in this story. And Sean Spicer just ramming it down the drive-bys' throats yesterday in the Daily White House briefing. But first, we're going to start on the phones, and we're going to resume with Mark from London, Ohio. This man held on for a couple hours yesterday, and we ran out of time at the end of the program, and I promised him that I would not give him, would allow him to complete his thought because he was on a roll here. And he gave us his number, so we called him back. We welcome him back to the program. Mark, thank you, and how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Rush. First of all, let me say I've been listening for a long time. Extremely honored to be on your show. You've inspired me very much through the years. Very, very grateful for all that you've done and all that you've said. And please don't ever, ever, ever quit. We need you.
I appreciate that. I want to pick up because I really do. I'm not trying to ignore that. I want to get to you and what you think, and I want to remind the audience from yesterday to today that what your point was that people need to see Trump as he really is and not make the mistake of plugging him in to the way Washington always is. You describe him as an avalanche or as a flood, that he has a momentum behind him. Yeah. And he's not going to be stopped, no matter what they think. He's not. In fact, there's already stories about how long their betting parlors now taking. How soon before 4 years will Trump leave the White House? The bet's being made that he won't serve the first 4 years. So that meme is already being established. You think that he's a whirlwind and is going to come in and just continue to dominate Washington, even though that's not reported?
Yes, sir, I do, and I compare him to a modern-day George Washington. George Washington was up against incredible odds, but you have to say Providence was at work in his behalf, and time after time he kept going. He survived through Valley Forge and every disappointment, and after one defeat after another, they'd come back and win. But and if I had the time to elaborate, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, there are very many things that happened in the American Revolution that were just amazed the whole world. They couldn't believe it. But I believe that kind of momentum is behind Mr. Trump. And a year ago, who would have ever thought we'd be where we are now? And considering everything Mr. Trump has overcome, all these adversaries and all these problems he's having now, I don't think it's any kind of a big deal. I think he's going to get through it. And I have an illustration to kind of make my point. I know you like stories and illustrations, and but you remember the old story about the Dutch boy who stuck his finger in the dike or the dam.
Be very, very careful here with given what happened to the reporter calling a tennis player guerrilla tactics. Start putting fingers in dike stories. I know you can do this. Be very, very careful.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But anyway, he was a hero because I forget how long he sat there and stopped the thing from leaking or flooding or whatever. But I think that's kind of what happened is here come Hillary Clinton, and there was a leak in the wall, and she stuck a finger in it, and then another one popped out, and she stuck another finger, and before long she had all 10 fingers and all 10 toes trying to stop the leak. Then here comes Obama, and here comes the press, and here comes all the Democrats, and all of them together don't have enough fingers and enough toes to stop this momentum that is behind the Trump movement, and it's a movement that's all over the world.
Let me ask you this: Do you think that Trump is winning in terms of advancing his agenda, in terms of keeping campaign promises? Do you think Trump has actually accomplished a lot of things?
He's accomplished a lot in spite of, a few setbacks here and there. I think he's accomplished a great deal. Yes, sir.
If I wanted to go down list by list item, Trump said this during the campaign. Yep, check that off, done that. Said this, done that. Said this. I could go to about 75% of the things Trump promised to do, he's already addressed. And in one way or another, you could make the case that he has begun the work and is on the way to having those things accomplished. And I imagine saying that there are many people, that's crazy. Are you watching the news? Trump's not getting anything done. I mean, Trump is being sidetracked. He's being diverted. I mean, Trump, the judges are stopping him. Trump hasn't got anything done. It's embarrassing, Rush. How many of you think that? I imagine there are a lot of you do. It's hard not to be in the media jail. It's hard to escape it. But I'm here to tell you that Trump has pulled off an amazing number of achievements already. Getting his cabinet confirmed and some of the things that they're doing, there's the jobs that have been created, the factories that have not moved. There's any number of things here that he said he was going to do that have been done. And right now, you'd be hard-pressed to find a full-fledged failure. That's why everybody's paying so much attention to repeal and replace Obamacare, because they're hoping that this blows up in Trump's face. And I still maintain that the people in Washington, media, establishment, think tanks, still do not know how to analyze, watch, observe, deal with Donald Trump. You shall see. I appreciate the call very much, Mark, and we've got to take a break, folks. Don't go away. We're just get warmed up here. Having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have. Rush Limbaugh saying more in one broadcast hour than you will hear in most cable news shows in a week. Sit tight, my friends. It's a cigar break, and then we're coming right back. Don't go anywhere. No. Let me try it again. I'm happy I mean, I get frustrated if people don't understand me when I think I'm crystal clear, but if they don't, it just means I have to explain it again. So I'm going to try explaining it again here. What I'm trying to tell you is that when it comes to health care, when it comes to the Trump budget, we're making a mistake if we judge how well Trump is doing, if we plug him in to the existing, failing, worthless, never gets anything done systems in Washington. If instead we look at Trump as blowing all of that up and reforming it and changing it so that he gets done what he wants done, then you see it in a different way. Does that help? It's the thing that I have been saying since the campaign. Everybody judges Trump as though he's your average, ordinary Republican or, for that matter, Democrat politician. And they judge his success or failure on those things. And you can't do that because he's not that. Even if he wanted to be, he's not a politician. He's not of Washington. But they don't know any other way. And I'm referring largely here to the media, but I'm also talking about the elected officials and all the satellite things, the think tanks, the lobbyists, and so on. They only know the way we've always done it. You've heard people say, well, we've never done it any other way. This is the way we do it. And that's how they judge success or failure. So they've got this guy, Trump. They have yet to properly understand him. They've not even tried to understand who Trump is. They simply measure him a failure and a bigot and a bum because he can't walk through their china shop without upsetting everything on the racks. What the people who elected Trump did was send him there to totally reorient this system and the way things get done, because things have not been getting done. The things that have been getting done have been against the will of the people. There are things that people have not voted on that have been like Obamacare. And what really happened, if Obama had been honest about what he was going to do with that, he would have never been elected. If Obama had been honest and told people that in his objective after 8 years was to see to it the Iranians were on the road to a nuclear bomb, he would not have been elected. So Washington is made up of people who have to practice deceit and deception and distraction. Get us looking at things over here while the real dirty work's getting done while nobody sees it. And the media's right in there helping us, keeping us distracted. That system's been up and running for decades. And Trump opposes all of it and ran on a premise that he was going to change it, reform it, blow it up, however you want to characterize it. Donald Trump is not judging himself by how well he is mixing in with the way it happens in Washington, because he went there, he wanted to go there to blow it all up. And I use that term to just be synonymous with change it, reform it, improve it. I guarantee you, Trump is going to judge himself not by, let's say the Ryan version of Obamacare, repeal and replace. I don't think Trump is all of a sudden going to make himself subservient to the system that he ran to reform. What Donald Trump is doing, if you ask me, is actually plowing straight ahead. It may appear slowly at times, steady, but he's bucking the system at every turn, and that's why they hate his guts. And that's why they're reacting to him the way he does. They do. And I guarantee you, all of these things about him alleging that Obama wiretapped him, it's being characterized as, Trump's an idiot. He says he's on TV and he repeats it. But what's wrong with that? We're supposed to trust the news, aren't we? Why can't Trump say, I saw on TV what do you mean you saw it on TV? Well, like everybody else did. Well, you can't trust it on TV. Why not? Does it mean nobody on TV is worth being trusted? I saw Brett Baer say this, and I saw this, and I saw somebody said, what do you mean you saw Brett Baer say? Is that how you learn what's going on? Are you telling me we shouldn't learn by virtue of cable news what's going on? But this is about Obama wiretapping him and so forth. And he doubles down every time. We've had the House and Senate intelligence chair. We've had former FBI people, former CIA people, the Russians, the Brits have all come out. This guy's a nut. This guy's a screw loose. We didn't wiretap him. Nobody's done this. Trump, and yet Trump is doubling down on it. He's not backing away. He's not acting embarrassed. He sent some people from his administration out to apologize to the Brits over something that Judge Napolitano said. That some people quoted. But I think, and even I get suckered into this, folks. You can't avoid it. You have to be really conscious of this at all times. Let me try this. You know, Kimberly Strassel at the Wall Street Journal. Let me hear. Yeah, she has a piece that ran, I think it was yesterday, might be today, but I think it's yesterday. Headline of her piece: the Republicans relearn politics. The health care bill is far from dead, and a contentious debate is a sign of vigor. Now, I don't want to be picking on anybody here, but there's another Wall Street Journal column today, and I've had a lot of people send it to me. And some people think, this is really good, Rush, you should get behind this. And other people think, like Peggy Noonan. And the thrust of Peggy, I didn't read it all, so allow me the opportunity to be somewhat wrong about some of it. But her basic thrust is Washington isn't working. This is bad, and Trump has got to cross the aisle, start working with Democrats. He's got to cross it. Mr. President, please cross the aisle and bring some Democrats in. She also goes after his budget. Why are we cutting? Why can't we talk about growing? Why can't we talk about dynamism? Why can't we talk about expansion and growth? And so why are we... And my reaction to that was, that's the kind of stuff that has gotten Republicans defeated. I'm sure that Peggy Noonan's intentions are the best in the world. And I'm sure her desires are as pure as they are. I don't think Peggy Noonan is in any way trying to sabotage Donald Trump with this advice. I just think that it's wrong. Cutting the budget is damn well needed. We can't have real growth with this kind of debt and spending to serve it or service it. It can't continue this way. We're wasting money. We're giving money away to individuals and groups that are poisoning the culture of this country. It's got to stop. And Republicans have told us for as long as we've been listening that they want a smaller government, that they want to cut the budget, and they want to cut it here and cut it there. How many years have we been told we're going to cut the Department of Education, nothing happens? How many have we been told we're going to cut the EPA, nothing ever happens? Here comes Trump's budget, and there's some genuine cuts. In fact, all the CPB, gone. Corporate broadcasting, public broadcasting, gone. National Endowment Arts, National Endowment Humanities, gone. Exactly what we've been promised countless times before that nobody's delivered on. And Trump wants to take the money saved and add it to the defense of the country. Because these are dangerous times. We're a great nation at risk in a dangerous world. We got to do this sometime. If we're actually going to remain a superpower, and if we are going to remain a country with legitimate, foundational economic growth and expansion, we've got to get rid of some of the redundant, unnecessary, and in some cases poisonous government. And that's conservatism 101. And instead, what do we get? When it looks like things are falling apart, when it looks like things are, oh my God, Trump's such a disaster, Mr. President, please go to the Democrats and let them save you? As I say, I'm sure Peggy's intentions are the most honorable in the world, as is her desire. But I think this is it. That's exactly what the Republicans have always done. That's what they've been advised to do, and that's how they always squander advantages, even after they win elections. The Democrats are not interested in the things Republicans want to work. the Democrats are not interested in helping the Republicans make anything better. The Democrats have no desire for Trump to succeed in anything, even if that means that the country is in a better mood every day. The Democrats are not interested in it. And the fact that we still have people, and I don't just mean Peggy Noonan, the fact that we have people who still don't recognize the imminent threat posed by the Democrat Party and the American left is stunning to me. And all you have to do is look at the Ninth Circuit and these judges who are usurping constitutional authority they don't have simply to stop Donald Trump because they think he's a pig. That's what we're up against, and that's just one example. And taking it on isn't going to be pretty. Taking it on is not going to happen while everybody's happy and smiling. Taking it on means wresting power away from people who believe that it is theirs simply because they breathe. We are living through an era where the media routinely makes things up and lies and distorts for the express purpose of destroying any opposition to them whatsoever. I think we need to be, for those of you that voted for Trump, you need to be grateful that the guy has a spine and a backbone and is not capitulating to all of this. You need to be thanking him every day that he's not wavering and that he's not caving to it, that he's still calling them the fake news. In his little presser today, well, the availability, when he was talking about all the no votes, he converted to yes votes on the health care reform. Half of his comments were on the fake news and the fake media and how they continue to make it up and lie about it. Now, back for one more comment here from the Kimberly Strassel piece in the Wall Street Journal. Remember her headline, "The Republicans relearn politics. The health care bill is far from dead in a contentious debate. It's a sign of vigor." What we are witnessing is not a legislative demise, but the rebirth of a long-lost Washington concept, which is politics. This is what it looks like. This is what it looks like when you have adversarial parties vying for power, trying to win their version of ideas for the sake of the country. This is what it looks like. People have been educated in conflict resolution to think any disagreement like this is a bad sign. It means a country's not working. There's too many mean people out. This is what it looks like. This is exactly what went on during the founding. And our first caller here today referenced what it was like during the Revolutionary War. We had Americans who were opposed to fighting for independence even back then. We've never been unified 100% at any time in this country. It's always been politics that determines who wins. And that means you've got to have the guts and the chutzpah to fight for what you believe in, not caving and reaching across the aisle. And I think, in terms of the media, Ms. Strassel here, this is unique. I haven't found anybody else analyzing it like this. And the way, if I might throw my hat in the ring, the way I am too. Trump said during the campaign he's going to show the Republicans how to win. It's what we're watching. And we're also, while he's showing them how to win, we are seeing how they are programmed to lose. We're seeing it. We're seeing how they want to run away from the Republican president. They want to join the Democrats. They want to run away from a fight. And we're seeing why the Republicans always lose. Trump is showing them how to win, which is what he said that he was going to do. And I'm going to tell you this, Trump is the impetus. Trump is the engine. Trump is the reason all of this politics, these negotiations are going on right now. And this is his wheelhouse. He loves it. You look at the news coverage, how can anybody love this? He loves it. He loves it so much he told people in Nashville at his rally, I can't wait, we're going to get in a room, I don't care how long it takes, we're going to get in a room, we're going to talk about it, we're going to fix it. The crowd was going nuts. He's talking about health care reform. And all the while, these experts and the lifers and the people have been doing this for years and years and know exactly how it's done and think that Trump's the biggest buffoon and bigot they've ever seen, still don't really realize what they're up against. But they're going to figure it out at some point. It is the age of enlightenment is going to happen at some point. And I think they're mocking Trump when he said he's going to win so much, you're going to get tired of it, you're going to ask him to lose now and then. Trump's not losing anything, folks. I know the media makes it look like he is. And they singing songs of happiness as though he is, but he's not. What he's actually doing is taking Republicans to school and showing them how. Isn't this what we have always wanted, by the way? It's what he's doing. He's showing them how it's done. And in the process, demonstrating everything that goes along with it. It's not pretty. You don't end up being loved by your enemies. But this is how it happens. Now, look, I have to take a break here. And I'm going to make sure I get everything else in that I told you I was. So be patient. It'll all happen, plus your phone calls. Okay, got a little blurb here from Trump in the Oval Office. I've referenced this a couple times today. This was about maybe a half hour, 45 minutes before the program began today. Trump in the Oval Office, at least that's what the video ran, with the Republican Study Committee. We're talking about health care reform. And they let reporters in for a moment, and Trump told the reporters what all had been going on and what has happened.
I just want to say that these are folks that were either a no or a maybe. And we had a nice meeting. And we've been talking all during the night. This didn't just happen over the last 20 minutes. This has been going all night long. And we are doing some incredible things. I want everyone to know I'm 100% behind this. I want everybody to know that the press has not been speaking properly about how great this is going to be. They have not been giving it a fair press. This is going to be great for people. I watch, I say, that's not the bill we're passing. And I also want everyone to know that all of these no's or potential no's are all yeses. Every single person sitting in this room is now a yes.
And not a one of them stood up and said, no, I'm still voting no. Every one of them. When Trump said they were no's or potential no's, and now they're yeses. So what is he doing here? He's once again going straight to the people and saying, you're not being told the truth about this health care bill. Everything you think you know about it, you don't know beans. We're putting together a great bill. You're going to love it. We had been meeting all night. We've been doing this all night, not just this last 20 minutes, not just this morning. And he went into a little diatribe on the fake news and the fake media. He's not caving, not giving up, not feeling defeated. Feelings aren't hurt that Washington's not accepting him. None of that crap is going on. It's the other way around is what is happening. Okay, back to the phones. A couple of phone calls here. We're going to get into the judge and the ruling on the Trump travel ban. Got to hear this. It's crucial. I'll tell you what's happening here. I mean, the silent coup, you can look at this as the usurpation of democracy. There's any number of really accurate, potentially gravely dangerous things that just this little ruling could mean. Given judicial, literally we have the judicial branch stealing constitutional powers vested in the president. Is exactly what's happening here. But before that, people have been patiently waiting. It is Open Line Friday. We go to my adopted hometown, Sacramento, California. This is Robbie. Great to have you. How are you doing?
Hi, Russ Limbaugh. Great. I'm calling about these women who have been protesting against Trump. And in particular, about something that you quoted several times last week that I found very disturbing as a woman. You quoted Kate Blanchett as saying that her moral compass was in her vagina. What if a man said that his moral compass was in his sexual organ? What if a man said that his moral compass was in a sexual pleasure center? People would say he was a pig. They would say he was justifying sexual assault and rape and molestation. And if women want a level playing field, don't they need to play by the same rules?
They don't want a level playing field at all. And your point, I have to tell you, that is brilliant. That is the kind of analogy that everybody can understand. I really applaud you. The only problem with it is that the women you're talking about already think men are pigs.
You're probably right about that.
But that is an excellent point. Can you imagine if some guy, let's say, take your pick, Mel Gibson. Let's pick an actor. Mel Gibson, who they already hate, right? Or Schwarzenegger. Have Arnie go out there. I will be back. My moral center is in my peanut. Can you imagine what they would say?
It would be so offensive. But a woman can say it, and it's fine. And people applaud it.
Oh, I know. It is incredibly double-standard. You know, you have reminded me, I've got another story here that it's in a portion of the stack here that if I need it, I'll get to it. It's not something that I had front and center, but since you've called, it's a story in the New York Times. It's a column by Thomas B. Edsall. Now, Thomas B. Edsall is a political columnist. And this is the guy who wrote in the Times in November of 2011 how the Democrats were going to abandon white working men as a voting bloc. That's who this guy is. Robbie, thanks for the call. I really... What part of Sacramento do you live in?
I live out near Elk Grove.
Oh, okay, Elk Grove. There's an Apple distribution center out there.
There is a very large one.
Absolutely. Okay. How long have you lived there?
I have lived here all my life, well, since I was 3, and I have been listening to you since the 1980s.
That makes you a lifer. Yeah, I started there.
I am a lifer.
Yeah, I started there, it was October of 1984. And that was my break. Sacramento, California was my professional break.
Well, part of the reason I'm able to think and articulate the things that I can is because I've been a student of yours for so long. So thank you for your teaching.
Well, God bless you. Thank you. I never take any of that for granted. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Robbie. This piece, Thomas B. Edsall, is entitled The Increasing Significance of the Decline of Men. In other words, this decline in men ain't a good thing. And I frankly was stunned to see that this appeared in the New York Times by a writer who is a card-carrying leftist. So I said, okay, what's this? There's got to be some catch to this, because this is not something the New York Times would find a problem with. The New York Times is popular by people who think not only is the United States the problem in the world, it is so because of the male population. So here are some, there's a pull quote. What does all this suggest? First, there are irreversible changes in the workplace, particularly the rise of jobs requiring social skills that will continue to make it hard for men who lack them. Second, male children suffer more from restricted or non-existent parental leave policies and contemporary child care arrangements, as well as from growing up in single-parent households. In other words, we've finally got an acknowledgement here that single-parent households are maybe a problem, but primarily for the men or the little boys. And that we need to fix this with expanded parental leave. So there's the liberalism in this. But this piece portrays men as victims. And I just don't think that real men consider themselves victims and don't want to be considered victims, do not want to be victims and don't want to be thought of as victims. A lot of people do want to be victims. It's easy. It's an excuse for not doing anything, an excuse for failing. Being a victim means somebody else is responsible for everything going wrong in your life. So the Democrats love plugging as many people as they can into victim status. But here's how it starts. In 2016, 95.8% of Fortune 500 CEOs were male, and so were 348 of the Forbes 400. Of the 260 people on the Forbes list described as self-made, 250 were men. Wealth and the ability to generate more wealth must still be considered a reliable proxy for power. But at the other end of the scale, men of all races and ethnicities are dropping out of the workforce. They're abusing opioids. They're falling behind women in both college attendance and graduation rates. Since 2000, wage inequality has grown more among men than among women. And there's some stupid chart here from the Economic Policy Institute to illustrate it. For many men without college degrees, the scaffolding that underpinned their fathers' lives has been torn down. David Leege, an emeritus professor of political science at Notre Dame, wrote me by email. This is Thomas B. Edsall of the Times writing. He said, the institutions that men knew to process authoritatively the economic and social changes they faced in earlier times are gone or undermined. The union, the Catholic Church, the industrial bar with co-workers, as in go-get-a-drink bar, the compliant wife, all those things that used to make men men, the union, the church, the bar with Archie Bunker sitting there, compliant women, has been replaced. And what's replaced it is an unvetted information technology that yields little truth or comfort and nurtures enemy and anger. He goes on to talk about the fact that men are declining in power, in stature, and in wealth. And it's all because all the things that made them bigots and closed-minded mind-numb robots are gone. And compliant, well, now women standing up to them, that's something that these real guys, they just can't take it. They don't know how to deal with it. And it's causing them to shrink away in terms of self-image, stature, and the rest. Anyway, it's convoluted. It's just, but to me, it was a surprising thing to see in the New York Times to even have it acknowledge the increasing significance of the decline of men. I mean, if you want to talk about the decline of men, it is happening. Men in great numbers are not going to college. Now, I would disagree profoundly with the reasons given in this piece as to why. But I think a lot of this decline of men or the withdrawal of men from various places in our culture is all due to feminism and what it has done to everybody. Because what feminism sought to do, when you get right down to it, feminism was brought to us by a bunch of angry women whose major grievance and beef was with human nature and God. And they sought to reverse, undo, change, whatever, basic human nature, things that we're born with. And it rendered, at the peak of the movement, started the current era, late 60s, 70s, 80s is when this thing was boomeranging. We're still feeling the effects of it now, but it just led everybody to be confused. Nobody knew who they were supposed to be with the opposite sex. Nobody knew everybody was turned into actors. Everybody was afraid to be who they were, particularly men, because they were taking it every direction. Men are they're rapists, men are brutes, men are predators. You can't trust men with their own kids. They beat their wives, they get drunk. This was the image that was being created. They're chauvinist pigs and all this. And like everything else, nobody wanted to be thought of that way. So men began even subconsciously to behave in ways that would try to indicate that, don't think of me like that, I'm not that. But when the pop culture is littered with TV shows that portray men this way and women as the never-ending victims, no matter how much power they acquire, no matter how much the decks are stacked in their favor politically, they're still portrayed as weak and victims and not fairly paid and so forth. And all men want to do is get along. It's not all this feminism garbage about the way men treat women and so forth is so much misunderstood, but it makes sense it's misunderstood because the women responsible for this modern era of feminism themselves were unhappy over the role basic human nature had assigned them. So they set about trying to change it. Everybody becomes actors. Nobody knows what they're supposed to do, with who, how to behave, and therefore nobody was real. And in fact, being real, actually being who you were, if you were a man back in this era, you could get fired. You could lose your kids. Any number of horrible things could happen to you. Now you look at things going on. What guy wants to go to a college with a bunch of Lena Dunhams there? Why do you want to put up with that? It makes perfect sense to me that men don't want to put up with this kind of various curriculum changes and some of the stuff you have to take, like women's studies from the early Amazon years, 1700 BC. BS. Who cares about any of that? And you got a professor, Catherine McKinnon, at the University of Michigan, was teaching in the 1990s women in her class that all sex is rape, even the sex in marriage. And these young college female co-eds are just soaking it all up and thinking it's gospel and it's new and revelatory and brilliant and so forth. What the hell do you think that's going to do to normal, everyday male-female relationships? And to me, it makes perfect sense that men would matriculate away and out of that, wanting no part of it. Why would they? And if the way you have to get along with women is to go out and find every book that every feminist has written on rape and become a scholar in it, who wants to do that? In order to have some way to relate. These kinds of things, it's not a mystery here. Not to me. Back in just a second. Don't go away. What is this? I just got this, just appeared right now on the computer. Have not even had a chance to read this. ABC News. Secret Service laptop with Trump Tower floor plans, details on Clinton email probe stolen in New York. A laptop computer containing floor plans for Trump Tower, details on the criminal investigation of Hillary Clinton's use of private server, and other national security information stolen from a Secret Service agent's car in New York City yesterday, law enforcement sources tell ABC News. Well, we'll dig into that, see what that's about. Don't want to make too big a deal out of it now. And remember, it's ABC, folks, so you know what? I should not have even shared it with you until I had a chance to dig deep in it, but I did. Back to the phones. Bart, Boise, Idaho. Next you are. Great to have you on the program, sir. Hey.
Hi, Rush. Great to talk to you.
Thank you very much, sir. Great to have you with us.
Hey, Rush, I have been calling off and on for the last 20 years on Open Line Friday to ask you this question. A quick little setup. I was living in Anchorage, Alaska at the time. I'm a salesman for construction supplies. I'm out on my morning route making sales calls. You receive a phone call. This is 1995. The class of 94 had just, that Congress had just come into play. And a lady had called up and asked you two questions. Number one, what were you most proud of? What item, what piece of conservatism, what kind of educational thing were you most proud of that you were able to offer to the audience? That was number one. Number two was, what was the funniest phone call you had ever taken? So you answered number one, and it was baseline budgeting. Because up until that point, I don't think most people knew, what baseline budgeting was. So when Newt was out there saying, we're gonna cut this and this and this, and the Democrats were saying, oh my gosh, they're cutting everything, you explained that we're just cutting the increase from last year's budget. They're not getting less money; they're just getting less of an increase, right?
That's
so
right.
Explain that, and I'm listening. And during that time, you had a couple of people that would call up periodically, and they were, just funny calls, and there was, so it was the top of the hour. And you got done with the baseline budgeting and said, we're going to hold her over and start it at the top of the next hour. And whatever it was, 9 o'clock or whatever, I had an appointment. I mean, it was an appointment. I had been driving around the block at this
You know
point.
what? I'm out of time now. I have to terminate the call now. I don't even have time to get your next question. How about a coincidence? 20 years and this happens to you twice. No, I'm just kidding. Hang on. I do have to take a break, but we'll come back. Yeah, I'm going through the photo library, find photos of Allie the cat to send up to Coco so she can accompany the story I told at the opening of the program about Allie to the vet today. Anyway, we've got a big hour left, folks, here. Hang in there, be tough. A jam-packed hour upcoming as we wrap it all up today. Rush Limbaugh on Friday on the Excellence in Broadcasting Network.
Live from the Southern Command in sunny South Florida, it's Open Line Friday.
800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. Here you go, a laptop computer containing floor plans for Trump Tower, details on the criminal investigation of Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server, and other national security information stolen from a Secret Service agent's car in Manhattan yesterday. Authorities are still searching for the laptop. Police expect to quickly identify the suspect from video evidence. The computer is encrypted, and authorities are able to wipe the hard drive remotely if needed. What are they waiting on? Floor plans of Trump Tower. Okay, you can see that. Secret Service has to develop a security plan for it. Details on the criminal investigation of Hillary Clinton's use of private email, other national security. I mentioned that Sean Spicer really took it to the media yesterday in the press briefing. They're not used to this. They think that Sean Spicer is the character on Saturday Night Live. So another thing about liberals. They think Sean Spicer is an idiot. They think he's a goof. They think he's incompetent, stupid, dumb, slow, shouldn't be in the job. They think they run rings around him every day. They've parodied Sean Spicer on Saturday Night Live. Some actress named Melissa McCarthy dresses up like him and makes him look like a fool and an idiot. So that's who they think he is. Yesterday in the press briefing, Spicer's briefing during the Q&A, we have a montage of Spicer's answers, citing various news sources. This is in response to a question from Jonathan Karl at ABC News about Trump's tweets that Obama wiretapped Trump Tower. And as you know, Trump is doubled down on this. He's not apologized. And they keep going after Spicer. Admit this is a made-up thing. Admit that your boss is off his mind, off his rocker. Admit that your boss is insane. Admit that your boss, admit the president is a Looney Tune. Admit they just keep going after him this way, and this is what Spicer did.
Let's go through what we do know. The New York Times reported on January 12th, 2017. On March 3rd, Fox News chief anchor Bret Baier said the following. On November 11th, 2016, days after the election, Heat Street reported, quote, January 19th, the New York Times reported the following. Andy McCarthy, writing in National Review, suggested, quote, Heat Street describes these concerns. We go on. Sarah Carter from Circa reporting numerous outlets, including the New York Times, have reported on the FBI investigation into Mr. Trump's advisors. BBC and then McClatchy revealed the existence of a multi-agency working group to coordinate investigations. On February 14th, the New York Times again refers to phone records and intercepted calls. Days later, the New York Times then reports, quote, Sean Hannity went on Fox to say, quote, last on Fox News on March 14th, Judge Andrew Napolitano made the following statement.
His point is the press is up there demanding that where are you getting this stuff? Your boss is an idiot. What do you mean? Trump thinks Obama wired it. So Spicer said, well, let me tell you where we got it. We got it from you. And he writes and reads the sources right back to him. Every one of these sources, the New York Times, that headline on January 20th, wiretap, right in the headline. Heat Street, that's where the original reporting on the FISA warrant request last summer came from. A reporter by Louise Mensch, by the way, a five-star Trump hater. She's since been fired by Heat Street, from what I understand. Andy McCarthy summarized all of this at National Review based on what was in the drive-by media. And he just read it right back to them. So the drive-bys freaked out. Last night and this morning, we put together a montage. CBS, CNN, MSNBC, NBC, ABC, reacting to what Spicer just did.
White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer doubled down yesterday. He said more information will be coming out.
White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer's combative and angry defense of the president's unproven claims really nothing short of extraordinary.
White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer, defiant and combative.
Spicer was combative. Some new defiance from the White House.
A lengthy spectacle in which Spicer was more combative than usual.
One of the most surreal White House briefings I have ever seen.
I've certainly never seen anything like it.
Okay, those last two are Stephanopoulos and Jonathan Karl from ABC. Now, of course they haven't. This is, again, what this is. Spicer says the reason we're saying what we're saying is because you've reported it. You have reported that there were wiretaps on Trump. You have reported that there's an investigation into Trump. And Spicer simply reads them the headlines. or in some cases the first sentence or two of the story. So what they said was thrown right back at them, and they call it surreal. And then they start making fun of Trump for believing what he sees on TV. And they start criticizing, this guy Trump, if he sees it on TV, he believes it. He doesn't read anything. Now stop and think of that. These people are on TV. They believe they are defending, protecting, and saving the country because they have a First Amendment right to do what they do. They are imbued with so much self-importance that it reeks. And yet, when people quote them, when people say that they watch them or read them, they freak out. You mean you got that from us? How stupid are you? Think of that. They often criticize Trump for saying that he saw something on TV. Well, what, are we, I guess, not supposed to watch it now? Are we not supposed to believe what we see on TV? If we're not, why are you people on TV reporting it? If the president isn't supposed to see it, believe it, consider it, react to it, why are you doing it? And the real question is, what is so worthy of panic having your own work read back to you? Why is that surreal? Why is that even odd? What is so bad about Spicer quoting you back to you? That's what's surreal. What's surreal is that the media feels insulted that Spicer would dare repeat what they have reported as a means of defending his boss and his allegations. While I have the moment here, I'm going to take care of one of these issues I've been waiting on. I'm going to tell you what I think has happened here and why I think Trump said that he's been wiretapped. And I can trace this right back to Michael Flynn, who has since been forced to resign because he met with the Russian ambassador and didn't tell Vice President Pence the truth about it. I do not believe they were wiretapping Flynn, although if I learn later that they were, I will not be surprised. But I do believe that the NSA routinely monitors, which could include a wiretap, it could include any kind of surveillance or hackery of all of these Russian people in the country, Russian ambassador, anybody at the Russian embassy. I guarantee you this happens. The NSA does this routinely, not just the Russians, the Iranians, they're surveilling everybody. Okay, so the Russian ambassador who's under surveillance, phone call with Flynn. Now, by law, when the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, whoever's surveilling a foreign agent, if the foreign agent happens to be talking to an American, they are by law supposed to ignore and not act on what they hear the Americans say because they're not the subject of surveillance and they haven't been granted a warrant to surveil them from the FISA court. What I think the controversy might well be is that all of these various means of surveillance of the Russians and whoever else have undoubtedly also availed the opportunity to hear who they're talking to that might be Americans in the Obama administration, Trump transition. And I think if anybody, the intelligence agencies or the FBI or even the Obama administration, if they acted on what they heard a Trump official or any other American say in a wiretap of a Russian, they're supposed to ignore that. They're supposed to they can't use it as a matter of law because Americans cannot be surveilled without the FISA warrant. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised. And I'm not predicting it. I'm just telling you that there's Trump's doubling down here for a reason. And it could be strategic and political. Could also be born of substance. It could well be that the legal surveillance of these foreign actors has produced tempting information from the Americans they were talking to. And that stuff may have been used illegally, in which case you'll never know because there won't be a warrant request for it. To this day, after all the reporting on those 2 FISA warrant requests, nobody knows for sure if they were actually ever requested. Now, Louise Mensch of Heat Street is the only drive-by who literally reported that a FISA warrant was requested by the Obama administration of the Trump campaign in June of 2016. She also reported that that request was turned down. She then reported that the Obama administration went back in October with another FISA warrant request that did not mention Trump, and that one was granted. Now, that's been reported, and that's one of the things Spicer was referring to. That's been reported everywhere, but nobody has actually yet confirmed it. And the original reporter, Louise Mensch at Heat Street, a 5-star never-Trumper, has since been canned. Now, we are led to believe that the president and Jeff Sessions, the AG, can find out anything they want about FISA warrants. They're in a position now that they have to be told if they ask. People are assuming that Sessions and Trump know because they can. But there's no evidence that any or either of those 2 FISA warrants ever actually existed. Yet look at all of the reporting since June of 2016. Well, actually since the fall of 2016, all of the reporting on those warrants as though they have been granted and that they were active and investigations were undergoing. That was Spicer's whole point in reading back to the media the things they have printed about this investigation. And since Trump lobbed that grenade back at him about Obama surveilling him at Trump Tower, they've all been having conniptions saying there wasn't an investigation. Trump's a fool. Trump's an idiot. And that's why, what do you mean there hadn't been an investigation? Here's what you all have reported. Rat, tat, 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 tat. Reads it back to him. Move forward to audio soundbite number 9. Nia Malika Henderson, CNN Tonight, last night, talking with... it's during a panel, so she was not asked a question. She just volunteered this. Talking about Spicer and his press conference and all these things he said, and she's reacting to it with this.
In that long soliloquy today, he is giving talking points to Trump supporters. He is giving talking points to Breitbart. He's giving talking points to Rush Limbaugh and anybody who wants to talk about this and defend the president. So I think in that way, it's very effective.
So Spicer wasn't he what was he doing? He was making it up? He's giving talking points to me? If anything, folks, it's the other way around. The talking points are provided here, and others pick them up. We don't get talking points from people. We provide them. That's what this program has long been known for, providing strategery, talking points, and all of that. But this is not what that was. Spicer was throwing it back in their face. And so here's this babe at CNN to try to delegitimize. He's just talking points. As though that never happened. As though none of that reporting ever happened. Spicer made it up. I'm telling you, they can make fun of Spicer all day long. They can parody Spicer. They can make fun of Trump. But I'm telling you, these people in the White House are changing the way things happen. Right in front of these people's faces. And I don't know that they're aware of it even yet. I'll take a break here. We'll continue with much more. We'll get back to our caller, Bart, in Boise. Let him wrap up after this. Don't go away. Snerdley says his phones are blowing up. If people say that I said Trump had the Freedom Caucus in with the White House today and that they all changed their no votes to yes, I didn't say Freedom Caucus. I said Republican Study Committee, who Snerdley thinks are a bunch of squishes anyway. But I did not say Republican Freedom Caucus. In other words, the conservatives. You people out there got to listen more closely. I say what I mean, except for those rare times I have verbal dyslexia in which everybody knows what I mean, even when I screw it up. Here's Bart in Boise. Bart, we left off with you. You were asking back in 1990 what I thought the funniest phone call to date.
Yes. And, I'd called off and on over 20 years. I'm not even sure if it's that important. I know if you remember it or not. It was just it got to a point where it was like, okay, I'm not giving up. I'm getting through to Rush and asking this darn question.
Well, I've been thinking about it here. When I tell you that I very seldom think back, it really is true. I'm not trying to dodge anything here, ever. It's just when this program ends today, it's over and I'm on to what's now happening that I'm going to need to address the next time I'm here. In this case, it'll be Monday. So when people ask me to think back, I often ask other people things they remember that have happened or consult the website. But at the time you asked the question, the funniest phone call, I would have so much trouble answering that. I mean, the two things come to mind, but I don't know that either one would actually be the one. We had a caller back in that era named Mick from the high mountains of New Mexico. This guy was a riot. He was hilarious. And he even showed up at Dan's bake sale in Fort Collins. He was not well, and he passed away after 7 or 8 years of being a caller here. But and he was not somebody we had his number and called regularly. He was not a character. He actually existed, and whenever he called and got through, that's when we put him on. There was another one, this deranged supporter of Louis Farrakhan who claimed that the chief joints of staff were the real focus of evil in America, and that Calypso Louis, Minister Farrakhan, was actually on the mothership, circling the planet, and was preparing to beam himself down and save whatever needed saving. She called 3 or 4 times, and livid, just angry as she could be, had no idea she was a laugh riot. And she called herself Rita X. Obviously a reference to Malcolm X. But even mentioning those two, I almost like a brain freeze. But if somebody said, name your top 10 favorite movies, I'd have trouble thinking of 3. I don't know. My memory, when something else triggers it, is unstoppable, is incomparable. But when given one of these, what are your top 10 favorite this or 5 favorite this songs, movies, I blank. And so trying to remember the funniest calls that would be an impossible. I'm sure right now people are yelling at the radio, hoping that I'll hear them and remember what they think were funny phone calls. I'm sure there were tons of them out there. But anyway, okay, still have to do the judge in Hawaii, what that ruling means. I want to do a little on the Trump budget as it relates to things I've already said about how Trump is reorienting the way Washington works. And one other thing, too, the healthcare business. All that coming up. Don't go away. All right, we're back. El Rushbo with half my brain tied behind my back just to make it fair. We have the joint press conference going on between Angela Merkel, Germany, and President Trump. And Merkel looks like she's just been taken to the principal's office. Well, I'll tell you what happened there. Trump began by talking about immigration is a privilege, it's not a right, and the safety of our citizens must always come first. He calls on all NATO allies to pay their fair share, and she's sitting right there. Germany's in NATO, and he's claiming we're getting shafted, and that other NATO allies must pay their fair share to the alliance. He thanked Merkel for increasing defense spending and upping their share, which it's a big deal to him, obviously. I reiterated to Chancellor Merkel my strong support for NATO. He said our two countries must continue to work together to protect our people from radical Islamic terrorism and defeat ISIS, with her standing right there. She's the one that's let 800,000 of them into Germany. She said it is much better to speak to one another rather than about one another. That's her way of saying it's nice to be in your company, Mr. President. She said, together we fight against Islamist terrorism. So Trump forced Merkel to use the term. Merkel then said, we the Germans owe a lot to the United States of America, which is true. I mean, there's no denying that. Mark Halperin got the first question, and he asked about health care, and I don't know specifically what it was, but Trump launched into the fact that Obamacare is a disaster, that it's failed, that it's dying, and talked about how wonderful the health care plan he's working on now is. Now, that was the early stages of it. I haven't had a chance to follow much more of that, but there was a German reporter that just asked Trump about Obama wiretapping him, and so I didn't get to hear the question. The commercial break ended right as the German reporter was getting to the meat of his question. I didn't hear the answer to that. Okay, let's move on to this judge, Derek Watson in Hawaii. Because what has happened here, folks, has the potential to be a genuine constitutional crisis, because what is happening is a silent coup. And I don't think this is even debatable. And what has happened, the judge in Hawaii was enabled in his ruling by virtue of the Ninth Circuit Court ruling when they upheld that judge in Seattle on Executive Order number 1 on the travel ban. And simply stated, the Ninth Circuit said it's perfectly fine if somebody wants to take the words of a candidate for president and assign genuine policy meaning to them. Even though the candidate has not taken the oath of office, he is not making policy, he's campaigning, and they said, Trump said he hates Muslims. Trump said that he wants to ban all Muslims. And so they're thinking, they have ruled that the words of the executive order are an effort to disguise Trump's bigotry. And on that basis, Trump can be defied, even though the statute is clear on this. So a lot of people are wondering, people who don't follow these things, and to whom legal maneuverings are also of a foreign language, why does this keep happening? As he attempts to freeze immigration from refugees and immigrants from predominantly Islamic countries, why does this keep happening? When the federal courts, they're federal district courts, in this case in Hawaii and Maryland, the judges said that the record of statements by the president and his advisors mean that, in their view, the real purpose of the executive order is to discriminate against Muslims. And that violates the Constitution's ban on favoring or disfavoring an election, the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. The only problem with this is it is completely illegal and totally against all judicial practice to decide on the merits of a law or executive order based on what you think the author's motivations are. And this conclusion, I read a piece here by a guy named Josh Blackman at a website called Lawfare, which I find myself consulting more and more. He said this conclusion will infect every Establishment Clause challenge ever brought against the president concerning Islam. Perhaps the president's decision to use military force against a predominantly Muslim nation could violate the Establishment Clause. In other words, nothing Trump can do would ever eliminate that taint. So his problem here is that if America's courts are now holding that congressional action in areas of enumerated exclusive authority, meaning the statute that allows Trump unilaterally and by proclamation to issue this ban, if America's courts are holding that that authority is subject to non-citizens being given the rights of our Constitution, then judicial review will have been extended to absolutely everything up to and including a decision to declare war. Imagine that if Trump decides to send troops, let's say to Yemen, on a military action, and some leftist goes back to this Hawaii judge or any other favorable liberal judge and says Trump can't do this because he's a bigot. Trump said during the campaign he didn't want Muslims coming into the country. He's prejudiced, he's biased against Muslims, and this constitutes murder. And the judge would say, we think that's right, and the president therefore can't send troops. That's where we are with the leftist judiciary. There is an attempt here to essentially steal Trump's executive powers because these people are liberals and he's not. They think he's a bigot. They think he's a pig. But what it really is a silent coup to steal, to extract, to eliminate all of Trump's executive constitutional power. Because once this has been established that you can deny a president constitutional power on the basis that you think he's a bigot because of something he said during the campaign before he took the oath of office, before he had constitutional authority. Everybody knows that campaigns are filled with promises and statements to engender support. Nobody has ever held that policy is made during a campaign. Yet these judges are maintaining that it was, because Trump's policy is so abhorrent, and these people find it so offensive. Plus, the judge in Hawaii said this ban will hurt our tourism. So I'm guaranteeing you, if Trump declared military action necessary, pick any of these 7 nations, let's say we want to actually send not just monitors and not just peacekeepers. We actually want to send an invasive force to Syria. Let's say someday somebody decided, Trump, we need to do this. These guys could say he doesn't have the authority because he's a bigot. Now, don't laugh, folks. That's what this is. We heard Trump say during the campaign that he wanted to ban Muslims. That means he hates Muslims. That means he's a bigot. That means he's filled with hate. That means his motivations here are not what he says they are. He just wants to kill Muslims. And so we are denying the president. We're going to put temporary restraining order on the president's declaration of military action. Now this, if something isn't done about this, and waiting for this all to go to the Supreme Court for it to be heard there, if this were upheld, this means that the judiciary will have literally taken over executive powers granted in the Constitution to the president. Rush, they would never do that because that would mean the next time we elect a Democrat. No. They'd never do this to a Democrat president, folks. The judges would never stop a Democrat president doing anything he wanted to do. That's why none of this is legal. It's couched in legalities. This is all politics. It's biased, prejudicial politics. Look at it this way. If the states would have been given a functional veto over executive powers enumerated in the Constitution, if any local judge, if any local left-wing anti-war dove judge has standing to deny a president his duties as commander-in-chief, where the hell are we? And that's where this is going to lead. Other people think this could lead to a genuine constitutional crisis if it's not resolved. Andrew Jackson faced this. Trump fashions himself a little after Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson just ignored them. You know, John Marshall was the Chief Justice. Andrew Jackson wanted to do something. John Marshall, Chief Justice, you can't. And Marshall said, okay, enforce it. And he went ahead and did it anyway. Pointing out, you don't have divisions, you don't have an army, you don't have the mechanism. You can sit there and tell people what you think all day long, because you can't enforce it. And you can't take my power. I don't know what Trump's going to do. I'm sure they're talking about it, how they want to deal with this. But it can't stand. This is nothing more than these judges. I'm sure they'd love the power, but this is literally what a silent coup looks like. I got to take a break. We'll be back and continue in just a second. Don't go away. All right, we got the soundbite here. This is great. A German reporter stands up here at the press conference. He said British intelligence today rejected White House claims that they unleashed wiretapping on you, Trump Tower, or members of your campaign. After these claims are rejected, what's your take on that? Are there other suspects? Do you think it was a mistake to blame British intelligence for this? And by the way, my second question, are there from time to time things that you regret tweeting? Now, that was the German reporter's question about wiretapping. Trump said...
Very seldom. We have a tremendous group of people that listen, and I can get around the media when the media doesn't tell the truth, so I like that. As far as wiretapping, I guess, by, this past administration, at least we have something in common, perhaps.
He gestured to Angela Merkel. See, folks, this is exactly... The media is having a cow right now. I was just listening to CNN, and they're going on and on about Trump's media illiteracy, that he doesn't know when he's listening to somebody on TV delivering an opinion, and he doesn't know when he's listening to somebody on TV doing genuine reporting. And he said Trump listens to all these people offering their opinions, and Trump doesn't know when they're telling the truth about the news and when they're offering opinions. So he's media illiterate. So Trump, asked about wiretapping, turns to Angela Merkel and says, at least we have something in common, perhaps, because Obama wiretapped her. Her phone was monitored. Her phone was bugged by the Obama regime. So Trump makes reference to it. That's what the laughter in the press room was about. And little Brian Stelter over at CNN went doubly crazy, talking about how stupid that made Trump look. Well, that makes Trump look crazy, even though Merkel was wiretapped. This is what I have meant all day about Trump turning upside down the way all of this stuff happens in Washington. Let me squeeze in Tracy from Bedford, Indiana, Open Line Friday. Welcome to the program.
Hey, Rush. Good to talk to you.
Well, thank you.
So I was listening when Bart called in and asked you what the funniest phone call you ever got was, and it jogged my memory because I've listened to you since your TV show.
Oh, yes.
And the funniest thing you ever did was show that clip of Bill Clinton coming out of a funeral. I think it was Ron Brown's funeral, where he was yucking it up with people and laughing and carrying on. And then he saw the TV cameras and got real sad. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
You said you were going to show that clip until everybody in America saw what a phony he was, or kind of...
We used that clip every day for 2 weeks in a row, multiple times a show. It perfectly encapsulated who Clinton was. It was a memorial for Ron Brown, his Commerce Secretary, who died in a plane crash, Bosnia or some such place. And they have a memorial in Washington, and Clinton's walking into it, and he's with a pastor, Tony somebody, from Pennsylvania, and they're just yucking it up, and they're laughing like they're going into a roast somewhere. And then Clinton spots the camera, and in less than a full step, he's faking tears and wiping tears from his eyes and putting his head down and acting somber. The minister has not caught on, and he's still yucking it up and laughing as though Clinton's telling the biggest, funniest joke he's ever heard. So, yeah, but that wasn't a phone call. See, that's another reason. Well, I don't have to. That's another frustrating thing about television, too. But I'll have to leave you hanging on that, folks, because we're sadly out of busy broadcast time. Folks, I didn't get to the budget stuff, and it really is fascinating and worthwhile. So I'm going to save it till Monday, as well as male menstrual cycles in the gay community up there. We'll do that on Monday. Squeeze it in with whatever happens between now and then. See you.